realise the limitations, then we can either work within it or we can act to try and change it.
Seems a bit quiet this morning.
Well, guys, here I am in Speaker's Corner, London. So we'll see how it goes today.
Yes, that sounds good. Yep, that's a good definition. I'll go along with that. Yeah.
Do you believe it?
What do you believe?
Do you think it's a good way to run and
Yes. Yeah. Because that's what we do. Absolutely. Yeah.
But we can't just throw out cabinets.
Well, normally, the thing is that's because politics get involved. You see, the problem with capitalism is that the politics runs the governments, and the governments are
I know it does look a little bit quiet, but believe me, later on, we will have to do probably, I don't know, 2 or 3 different videos. Later on, it will be mobbed.
They're said by the government that's claimed back from the people by tax, and if they don't pay it, they get locked in a prison, in a cage. So that's where the problem is. It's not capitalism, it's globalism. Why are you asking me what's the answer?
No, because
Why are you asking me
because you were up there.
Do you understand what I'm talking about?
I do, absolutely.
What's the answer?
No, I was asking.
No, you're in the same position. You have the same level of understanding. You tell me the answer.
You've just put out.
I've just come along with a car that's not functioning properly, and I tell you about it, and then you say, what's the answer?
And that's very serious. Did you know 85% of murders in England always come from home, close by? Why?
The victim of who?
Brother, you don't even know the word.
No, you said
Let me
they're
give you an
a
example.
victim.
No, sorry.
You said they're a victim.
Sorry.
And I'm asking you a victim of who?
Can I explain to you?
Don't overwrite me with that.
Can I explain to you?
Don't accept
Can
that.
I explain to you?
No, I don't accept
You don't want to
that.
hear?
I refuse to accept
you don't want to
that.
hear?
You said they're a victim. I'm not talking to you. You said they're a victim. You said they're a victim. And you said they're a victim.
The person who does the crime and the person receiving the crime
and I
are both
asked you
victims.
a victim of
Well,
who?
I'm going to tell you
and
now.
you said
I'm
because
going
I
to tell
don't
you
live
now.
in the real
Do you want
world.
to hear?
That's a
Do you want to
ridiculous
hear?
thing to say.
Do you want to hear?
And no.
Do you want to
I
hear?
don't want to hear from you again.
What's your purpose in
I
life?
dismiss you.
So you're
I'm going
just
to
the
pay
same.
you no
You're
attention
Hitler.
whatsoever.
This is a one-way journey for you.
Take part in a free
You see, you only look at what is
Stop
objectively right
talking
in
to
your
people
eyes,
that are
but you
doing
don't want to
that.
hear somebody else tell the story. So you have made yourself judge and jury. No, but you see, what he just makes himself a judge and a jury because you do not know what happens in the minds of human beings.
If you're asking
You don't know. If you ask the question,
right?
yes.
Taking stand, I'm gonna talk to you. You're gonna raise up your voice.
And then you're telling me you don't want to hear the rebuttal of the conversation you have. It's not a speak, it's not me speak. I'm telling you, if you take 50 young people under the age of 21 from a war-torn environment like Somalia, who have seen people die, murdered, gutted and stuff, and bring them to the UK, if you don't rehabilitate those people, you have a problem. Because their mindset is to retaliate by any means necessary, whatever comes before them. And that's the problem with integration in England. We need to help people to get back to reality, to get them to what they should be, not what we think they should become. By isolating people, we create havoc in a society. That's what multiculturalism is, my friend. Nobody gets up out of the bed in the morning with a cup of tea and 2 sugar, with a slice of muffin, let me go murder somebody. It doesn't happen in this real world, my friend.
Does happen.
All right.
About it does happen.
Is someone allowed to ask a question?
You're allowed to.
May I ask one? Sure. And can I ask, is Speaker's Corner the only place now that we have the right to speak and say our mind? Is it here now,
there's
or
certain rules here? Depends what you
Is
call
there?
rights. I mean, even the whole business about laws and rights it's so debatable. It's such fun. The thing is, here, this is apparently land that is claimed by the king. Right?
Yeah.
So it's the king's land, monarch's land. Now, do bear this in mind: the king, nobody owns land. They can't. People lay claim to it. Yeah? And therefore, that person, the king, has certain rules about here. But those rules don't appear to overrule other ones that the government seems to pop up and claim are laws or not laws. I don't honestly know. But the thing is, you can't say anything you like here. And that is wrong. You should be able to say anything you like. Because you're free to come, you're free to go, you don't pay to be here. It's the most freest enterprise ever. But you cannot say anything you like.
Of course you can.
It's a shame.
That's bullshit. Of course you can. You can say everything you want.
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay, what can't you say here? What can't you say? What can't you say here?
What? Oh,
You can just speak freely here, can't you? Is there a police that will arrest you? Is there
Okay, you can say anything you like.
What if it's racist or hate speech? Or if it offends
No, you're
people?
right, you're right.
Yeah, it depends. You can use racial slurs. You're not getting arrested.
You're right.
You're not getting arrested.
You're right. You're right. You can say anything you like.
With you with
And there's a reason behind that.
Yeah, I'm just not on the same page as you with the reason. I think the reason is that it is time to change, and many people don't want to change because it affects them, and it will affect their lifestyle, and many people aren't okay with that and are not willing to change their lifestyle to the better good of all of us.
Change from what?
From our, for example, if you expect a global warming, from our wasteful and freely life, where you can just take a plane every day, we can throw away stuff, and we just can use all the diesel motors and coal mining. And we need to shift to a
More sustainable environment.
exactly, and it takes it takes a toll on all of us. And not everyone is good with the commitment to that.
I think, if anything, the last 20 years has been for a positive is the promotion of a sustainable environment. I think even now, what you're drinking out of now, about most of the straws that we're using, I think if anything, that's probably the positive in Western society in the last 20 years is a sustainable environment. I think the issue is deeper than that in terms of why governments are going to a right wing or centre right proposition, and I think the environment's probably least on that list.
It's also like
I think it's the elephant in the room if we speak about it, but it's the main probably the main sticking block is probably the living crisis that we're in, and the reason why we're behind the living crisis, and the identity of a lot of Western countries, or Western European countries, is being dissolved.
Are you worried about the lack of freedom of speech, such as we're not allowed to slag off electric cars? There's people being threatened to go to prison for slagging off electric cars. That's just
that you can't slag off
well,
electric cars.
they do. I knew some people that fear it. Yes.
Just name me one country where you aren't allowed to say something about electric cars.
Here, I can't think of the guy's name, but he really does. No, not says no. I'm sorry. There's a guy here that does nothing else but slag off electric cars. I'm sorry, I haven't got his name. I can't think of it. But anyway, he's been threatened by the police, knocked on his door, asking him questions, etc., and threatening him if he carries on that they'll take it further. At the moment, he's carrying on, and at the moment, he's not been put away. But anyway, it's just one example. There's lots more. Calling a police dog names and things like that. I mean, there's people in prison for nothing, political prisoners. We won't mention the obvious one. I don't want to start a debate on that one, but there are so many people.
Who is in prison here because of their political beliefs and what they said? Who? Just name me one. I can't think of one guy that has political beliefs and told them to revolt and is in prison now here in the UK or in Europe.
Tommy Robinson's one. Julian Assange is the other. These are top of the head. You've got everybody that protested at the right-wing marches 3 months ago are sent to prison. And then you could argue that the anchor of BBC, who's a known child sex offender, gets a suspended sentence. I think that's kind of a clear example of where the government kind of lies in terms of reprimanding people. There's a lot of people, far left or far right, that are in prison due to their political beliefs. It doesn't align with the current government.
Okay, but
Julian Assange is probably the most common one. Yeah. I'm not familiar with that, but Julian Assange was kept within prison of a Ecuadorian embassy just across the Hyde Park corner, and that's because of not even his political beliefs, just exposing political agendas.
Peter Lynch committed suicide because he was put in prison for nothing, for calling policemen names and given 2.5 years. Unbelievable, and that's to commit suicide.
For social media posts.
what?
People are in prison for social media posts.
Okay, but what for social media posts? Depends on what they're saying. So if they're saying that Muslims are bad for a country, they're not going to get in prison.
Let me
But
give you an example. If somebody abuses a child,
yeah,
and is convicted of being a paedophile or child abuser, and somebody has a political point put onto a platform that enables you to say what you feel like, a manner of free speech, that person's political beliefs, right, have come across as somewhat of a hate speech. Objective. He gets sent to prison. However, the guy that's a child abuser and paedophile doesn't. Is that fair?
of course not.
Why
But
not?
that's not the usual. That's not the usual. Of course,
No, it's very usual.
no, it's not.
Very usual.
No, you're just driven by the narrative of.
No. Very usual. I'll give you an example in the last week.
Yeah, exactly.
BBC anchor, Hugh Dewey, famous BBC anchor who's been on our TV for 30 years, was caught with Class A child sex images, and he was given a suspended sentence for a year. So that basically means no prison. Somebody who expresses their political beliefs in this country in a way that doesn't harm anybody will be sent to prison, has been sent to prison many times over. Whether that political belief is, my opinion, right or wrong, it doesn't matter. But they're sent to prison over somebody who's abused and ruined somebody's life.
Okay, but just isn't the point then? Okay, the guy who abused somebody should go to prison as well. But that the guy that put out hate speech obviously should go to prison as well. If it's in a stage where it's really over the top and you should go to prison. We have to differentiate, of course, between the hate speech.
Nothing's black and white. I understand that. Yes. But then how would you subjectively confirm what is a hate speech and what isn't a hate speech? Because we can objectively confirm what is abuse and what isn't abuse.
I think it
So that's where the grey lines are.
Yeah.
So if somebody is abused, they're abused. If somebody has a political agenda, it's subjective whether or not that's hate speech or not. And I think that's where our government's failing many people
We never really know.
and many victims.
Another point, I brought this up years
And that's
ago.
another way that the government's failing people to have a freedom of speech as well.
problem is if someone's offended, and the new rule about pubs or the new law whereby you and I are sat there saying what we think, doing what the waitress comes up, puts down your drink, and while she's serving us, we say something she doesn't like. She goes away, calls the police, they come and probably arrest us.
Is it legal to be offended? To offend somebody?
Well, it is now coming up, the new law coming up. Yes, it is.
No, I offended so many people in my life with my political views, and I'm not in prison. I can go everywhere I want. I'm free, and I think that's just propaganda of the right wing that are trying to get you to think, okay, I can't put out my own opinion, although you can. There are countries in the world where you can't. Go to Russia.
It's been all over the mainstream news, so I know they don't. I know they tell lies a lot, but and it's been covered by not only the mainstream news but by top reporters and that. So I believe that story to be true.
Okay, but
You haven't heard it, but you will if it comes into force.
Any narrative that sits outside of the existing government's agenda is a narrative that they try to shut up, regardless if it's right, left, or anywhere else. If it doesn't align with this country's government, then it's something that gets hushed or pushed to the side or branded to be a racist or branded to be a communist or branded to be anything else. I think that's where our country is, rather than heading. It's in a place where we kind of, people's political and religious beliefs are kept quiet to sustain an existing agenda.
What we need is Isabel Oakeshott to come out with whatever she's got tucked under her arm, because she's got something for sure, and let it all out. She keeps threatening, she's got something that'll say goodbye to Starmer straight away, but she actually won't do it. She keeps threatening. So
I think they're all under the same umbrella, to be honest. Every last one of them, no matter if they're left, right, Conservative, Labour, they're all part of the same political agenda that keeps us suppressed and keeps them elevated.
well, I've come here today so I can say what I want.
maybe true, but I think we all can agree that the right parties are a greater danger to all of us.
Who represents the people? What party represents the people more commonly than any other party?
I would, at least in Germany, it's the left party. It's actually called Left Party, Linke. In German. Yeah, socialists. They try to represent us more and give us more power.
What do they call socialists? So a word to demonise them.
In Germany? Or
in general.
socialists? what they no. That's a difference. Socialism is not communism.
No, but that's where the main media agenda and main government agendas are, is that they classify people that are representative of the common folk as either being communists or racists or Nazis or right wing, and I think that's where we're falling into that. So the minute you read a paper is right wing Nazis or left wing communists, and I think what we have is parties in this country and most of Europe and America not a true reflection of the common folk in this world.
And that's why I think personally we need the mainstream media. For example, in Germany, it's funded by all of us, and it is not tied to the state, and it's not that it always the right wings, the left, the communists. They're just reporting new objectives. And I think that's very important. And the narrative that the mainstream media is propaganda for the state, I think in many countries that's true, but for the most of countries in Europe, I hope and I believe it isn't true. For example, in Germany, they criticize the politicians.
The ADF get a lot of shit from the government.
Yeah, but from an objective point, not you're right wing, you're bad, because they prove the points that the AFD has to be wrong.
Do they?
Yeah, of course. And
like, in what respect? Because I can understand lots of German people are kind of fed up with the way, say, like mass migration, right? There's been a ton of it. Lots of shit's going on in Germany because of that. Your replacement rates are down so low. They're just trying to. I'm going to say, it sounds like they're trying to replace the population of Germany with people who aren't ethnically German. Right?
Is that not what's sending the Europe further right illegal immigration?
And only 4 million of them are not Germans. So how long will it take from this 4 million people to replace these other 18 million real Germans?
You've got a lot of areas of Germany, though, lots of cities that are now, I would assume, because we are there ourselves already, that are now majority.
I mean, in my lifetime, when I was born, about 98% of British people were white British. It's now something like, is it 85 are white? Well, a lot of those are European, so the actual white native British is about 77, 76. So that's in my lifetime, in 69 years.
Okay.
It's gone from a mainly European white country that I was very comfortable in until about 1970. Then it became off, and now it's kind of like that. If you look at the graph, it's like that. And obviously I can't speak for Germany, but you had a big influx of Turks at some point, didn't you? Then the Syrians.
And they're not part of our society. They're working, they're living with us. We are on the
You
culture.
can't generalise.
Of course I can, because they're...
I really appreciate you're here, you know, it's great. German person's opinion, right? It's really good.
So there are a lot of Germans who see this as a problem, particularly the East, aren't they?
They are. It's getting bigger, but that's
the attack the other day that happened, and people were saying that this guy's far right. Turns out he was actually kind of pro BLM and stuff. You know what I mean?
What attack do you mean?
The one at the Christmas market attack.
He was an AFD supporter even. He was proven AFD supporter.
He was. Yeah, I get what you're saying, but he wasn't really far right. I don't know.
Of course you are.
An ISIS flag? They found it with an ISIS flag. Is that someone else?
That was in America.
Only like 2 or 3 weeks before the event happened. No, I'm a liberal. I'm left wing. It's just that he was pissed off with the German government for kind of thing he was saying, flooding the German immigrants and stuff like that. But he was saying, no, I'm on the left. I'm a liberal, I'm a BLM supporter, I believe in this and that. Like, you can check him out.
You can check out his Twitter, where he often reposted the AFD tweets and also give them some support to the AFD.
Do you think that there might be a little bit too much happening too quickly like, in Germany? So that people are getting wound up by it, and now the right are absolutely on the rise in Germany.
And the left, Sarah Wagener's group, so between them, they're both critical of the regime, as far as I understand it. So they're both outside the permitted discourse. So it's interesting. Moving on to different subjects. Nuclear power. The AFD, I presume, is in favour of restoring nuclear power, aren't they?
Nuclear power and coal power. Coal power. I don't know what's the English trend.
So to me, I mean, I'm absolutely with that. And Germany, in my understanding, after the Japanese incident, kind of panicked. Is that true? And Merkel decided to ramp down all of the German nuclear power stations. The last one closed last year. So that leaves you in a weird position, especially because somebody blew up the one of the Nord Stream pipelines. Not sensible. The other thing, and this applies to all European countries, is this idiotic support for Ukraine in the war. The NATO's performing against, because this is an American-inspired attack against Russia. We go into that in some detail. But this is affecting us all. I know you're going to say that, but if you look at you seem young enough not to have known the Cold War and how it ended.
But I know about the Cold War.
So my simple question is, in 1991, which is when the reunification of Germany was being talked about, what was the function of NATO?
I know.
No,
there was
a
function not to move to.
What was the function of NATO?
Because
NATO's still here 30 years later. What was the function of NATO?
To protect Western Europe.
Against who?
Russia
collapsed.
Those from Eastern Europe, I suppose.
There was no threat from Russia at all. What was the function of NATO? Oh, come on. Read your history books. Russia had been destroyed by the Western... what happened? America sent in these economic advisors, and they might have a good intent to create capitalism. The actual effect was destroy the economy. Life expectancy went down to about 55 for adult men. It took Putin to kind of get rid of the oligarchs, or start doing that, and start restoring things to the point now where they have a functioning economy. But it was largely due to the West in the 90s, where they collapsed the Russian economy. So therefore, I put the question again, what was NATO for? Because it was there in the Cold War, and I get that. I lived through the Cold War.
Even if Russia isn't as big as they were in the Soviet Union, they're still a...
Why do they need to be... Russia were tiny.
There's no intention of doing anything.
They have an economy of like Italy.
So why has Russia done what they've done over the last 20 odd years? Where it attacked other countries.
Because what happened was
that's why they're dangerous.
Various red lines. They're just looking at the other way.
Yeah. But that's why, don't you see? That's why NATO are there to protect
Yeah, but why were
us.
they there in the 90s?
Was it in the 90s? Because Russia wasn't having a go at the West. They were having a go at Eastern countries.
In the 90s?
In the 90s?
They were incapable of anything.
I can't think of the years. Who was the country before Ukraine that they went and took out?
Afghanistan?
No, another one similar to Ukraine. Was it Chester? Was that not all around the 90s, or am I going? No, was that since the 90s then?
The 90s was this decade of economic disaster for Russia, and also they got drawn into a stupid war in Afghanistan.
Yeah.
Again, that was America kind of trapping them.
Yeah.
But anyway,
So if they were so skint, where did they get all the money from to go and attack all these other countries?
when? At what point?
Well, just say Afghanistan or Crimea or any of those countries.
Crimea? No. I think the Afghan War was. Anybody remember when that was? It was sort of late. No. It started under the communists, didn't it? In the 80s. So this is when. I mean, you've got to understand America's operations here. America, for a long time since World War II, has been under this influence this faction that wants to preserve America as the global hegemon. Think about that. Now, directly after World War II, that made sense because that was the only economy that was left standing.
Yes.
Now, what happened at the end of the Cold War was that the neocons, the neoconservatives, did not absorb the idea that maybe other countries like Russia, Brazil, China, or India, all these other countries at some point are going to grow and they're going to become potential economic rivals.
Yeah.
They've had 30 years to cater for that. So what they have the dollar as being the global reserve currency, which gives them immense power. They have a military-industrial complex which is addicted to permanent wars. And they have this ideological brain set of them being the best democracy in the world and everybody's got to be like them. That still carries on. And to achieve that, they will destroy countries. I mean, look at the list. Afghanistan, Iraq, Libya, Syria, they're all the hands of America. They're not...
And every common trait with them countries that have been invaded is an independent
Yes.
an independent market to the Americans.
You look at Gaddafi, yeah, you're absolutely right. They They cannot stand that.
No. If
And
there
now
was
you're
no
going-
oil,
now
they
you've got
wouldn't have
Russia and
invaded.
China,
Yeah.
who are becoming centres of power. China is a very serious economic threat.
Independent markets to the Americans, especially Russia, Iran, and North Korea. So then again, it leads to the question: what is the actual purpose of NATO?
In 1990. Not now. I mean, they could argue well, Russia's a threat, but in 1990, I put the question.
Yeah, but you could argue that NATO is really the spearhead of keeping the New World Order for
Well,
the
it is,
American
yeah.
government.
Yeah.
And anything that compromises that New World Order, which at this time is Russia. And we could, you could also argue that the Ukrainian, at the time they invaded Ukraine, is when Ukraine was under the influence of NATO and pushing troops up into Russian borders.
Now again, there's an interpretation of what happened in Ukraine in 2014, and it will be contested by pro-Ukrainians, but the interpretation is that, again, I mean, it's detailed stuff, but in summary, what happened was that there was a government in Ukraine that kind of wanted to take a big loan from Russia. Well, they had the choice, either facing towards the EU or facing towards Russia. Anyway, the Prime Minister decided to take the Russian loan, and that provoked a coup d'etat. So you've heard of the Maidan event, 2014?
Not personally.
Well, what happened
no.
was that, and again, this is the CIA, the American agencies,
Yes.
and they're still doing it. They did it in Georgia recently. They will work with what they call NGOs, non-government organisations. They will work with, they will promote outfits in these various countries, political groups, particularly youth, and get them to, they have loads and loads of little groups, forming alliances, getting on the streets, waving EU flags, and just being a general nuisance. In 2014, they did this in protest to the orientation towards Russia. There was, it developed into a massacre. There was firing. There's very, very strong evidence that America was behind this in various ways. They were promoting Nazi elements. Now, this is something else
Who
we
was?
could easily forget, the Americans.
Americans,
Yeah, there's
okay.
a famous phone call between, what's her name, Victoria Nuland and the ambassador to Ukraine. And essentially, they were mapping out the government of Ukraine, the future government, which includes some of these Nazi elements.
Yeah.
Now, again, you need to look at the history of Ukraine. Going back to World War II, that there was substantial, especially in the west of Ukraine, which is now the nationalist element, still
Yeah.
there. They revere this guy called Stefan Bandera, who was, to all intents and purposes, a Nazi. There was a whole SS division that fought with the Nazis. They were involved in massacres against the Poles, which is why the Poles and Ukrainians don't like each other too much. So they're still there. I mean, not huge numbers. I'm not saying that every Ukrainian is a Nazi, but there's enough to threaten Zelensky's life. I mean, this is another thing to take into account. Zelensky has very limited room for manoeuvre, because he'll be assassinated by the Nazis if he decides to make peace with the Russians. So this is the point. I've waffled on a bit, but there's loads there that we never see. If you read the mainstream media, you will not see any of this. And this is the answer that you always get. Oh, Russia invaded, therefore we've got to support plucky Ukraine. I've tried to give a picture that actually it's far more complex than that, and Russia was quite justified in doing what they did.
Yeah, and I appreciate your thoughts on it, because you've got more knowledge on it than I have. So
I'll tell you what, for most of my life,
I'm happy to learn.
For most of my life, I've drifted along, and you kind of follow these things at a distance. And this time, for some reason, probably because I've got more time on my hands, about a year into it, I started following it in detail. I found some commentators online that were completely opposite to the mainstream media, and I found them very plausible. So, for example, you have people like Ray McGovern, who's an ex-CIA man, Larry Johnson, who's an ex-CIA man, Alistair Crook, who's a British ex-diplomat. He knows a lot about the Middle East. He was there talking to Yasser Arafat and so on. So in other words, these are not sort of tinfoil hat lunatics. They're people who've been involved in the events of the 80s and 90s and noughties, who actually have a story to tell. But they're on the opposite side of the mainstream, which is interesting. So they tend not to get a lot of coverage.
So they've got a political agenda as much, they're just more so showing you, or providing you kind of a narration of what's happened in the last 30 years.
But no, their agenda is peace. It's basically getting the truth out to people. And in fact, it's happened. There's another guy called Jeffrey Sachs. Now he's very interesting because he's one of these economic advisors who went to Russia in the 90s. And so you could say, oh, he's a bad guy, isn't he? But actually, he's kind of turned around. I don't know the full history, but he's now a worker of peace. He's a real activist for peace. And again, he's got, lots of ideas. But actually, Trump posted a speech by Jeffrey Sachs recently, which is very interesting, because that means Trump is developing a view of the world which is more in line with what I've been saying.
Yeah.
Right, which is shocking. I mean, if he doesn't get assassinated in the next month, I'd be very surprised.
It's a very personal. It's a very personal view he's got, though, isn't it? Is he Trump? I mean, he's when you think he's what's this new party he's putting up, and when you think he hasn't invited Starmer, that is unbelievable, isn't it? One of his best.
Oh, wait a minute. There's very bad blood between Labour and Trump.
Oh, I understand.
Don't forget the story that 100 Labour activists went to America.
I know.
Now, there's all sorts of arguments whether that's legal or not, but it's still Labour activists with the backing of the Labour Party were sent to campaign
but
for
no other president in history would have not invited Starmer. They would all accept and I think fair play to him.
It's remarkable. So they had 100 activists from the Labour government in the last year go.
Did you not know that?
I didn't know that.
Yeah, he did.
Before the American election.
That's betting on a three-legged horse, isn't it? Because we all would have known that Trump would have won.
No, at that time, they were all hyped up with the Harris thing, and they all thought there's no way she can lose, blah blah blah.
Yeah.
And Labour were all deluding themselves. So I think it was probably about September, October. It was 100 activists.
Yes.
I believe, with the organisation of the Labour behind them in some way. I mean, the Labour Party activist, can't remember her name now, but she's been quoted as saying, we've arranged accommodation for you and all that kind of stuff to go and work in these various states.
They did say those 100 that they paid. They said they paid. Yeah, and I see. They said they paid for themselves, but I'm not sure that's the case. But, what?
The technicality. I just think the optics are not very good, are they?
No.
Especially when everybody moans about foreign countries interfering, whatever the country interfering in our politics, and then now Starmer's been caught red-handed. That's what it looks like, anyway.
Well, it looks like it. That's the way. There's so many things coming up, isn't there? Like the Southport.
That's due to
the
start
thing.
When?
20th or 21st.
20th, that's tomorrow.
But when you think how many things are happening on the same day, you've got the Southport.
I know you do wonder, don't you?
You've got Trump. Inauguration, and there was another big thing as well, and I can't think what it was. The third big thing. I suffer with a bit of dementia, so I only have a certain amount of brain space, which I tried to keep.
You're not the only one.
I tried to keep for anything Tommy Robinson, which is why I didn't mention it today. Tommy Robinson, a little bit just right of centre, protests and stuff like that, and listening to what's going on.
He may have done some silly things. He said some important things that need to be said. Oh, well, yeah.
Listen, I'm going to walk round.
Yeah, okay then.
Thank you very much indeed.
I don't think I've seen you around here.
No, it's it's as good as my first time. I know, I've just walked through a couple of times. Right, I was going various places. I do, if you've ever heard of Auditing, by YouTubers.
Oh yeah.
So I enjoy going up to the hotels and
you're one of these pesky auditors.
Yeah. So I go up and upset the security staff. I just stand there like this in front of the security guy, and they've got to come out and have a row with me. Anyway, I'm going to have because my feet are growing roots, and I've got to move.
And saying, we're doing it differently.
Well, thank you again, and I hope to see you all again. Thank you very much for your time, everyone.
Revolution is one thing that people think that you should.
It might look a little bit quiet, but believe me, later on, we will have to do probably, 2 or 3 different videos. Later on, it will be mobbed.
God, you know God of Yahweh is not God. I tell you what, I'll pray with you. No, get back.
Tell him don't touch me.
Oh, don't touch me! Don't touch me! Oh, go home! Go home to mommy! I tell you what, why are you so angry? Why are you?
I'm not speaking about you.
I'm not speaking about you.
You look like a waste man.
Lord, listen.
What you gonna do?
This is what always happens.
What you gonna do?
What am I gonna do?
Don't touch me.
I'm just trying to help you.
Don't touch me.
I'm just touching you.
I'll push you.
If you touch me, I'll touch you back.
Don't touch me.
You see, folks, this is the love of Muhammad.
It's my right.
Hey, no. I'm not talking to you. Don't you dare talk to me. I'm talking about you.
My right. You can't
This
touch me.
is called love.
No.
Love.
You don't love anyone.
You can't
You're out
touch me.
here day and night trying
My
to
right,
deceive people
God
into worshiping
is-
the God of the
You need
Catholics.
love.
Get away from me. I rebuke you in the name of Yahweh. I rebuke
This
you
is
in the
love.
name of Yeshua.
Islam and nut. Same caliber. Over
This guy
here,
wants you to
we've got a
believe
nut
that the Hebrew
and we've got a
Messiah
peanut
has a
over
Mexican
here.
name.
But God is love in the middle. There's no greater love
The Hebrew
than the
Messiah,
love
his
of
name is
Jesus
Yahshua,
Christ.
and his name means Yahweh is salvation.
Jesus Christ can give
Jesus
us.
is a Mexican name.
He
It comes
wants
from
to
Jesus,
give us
and
peace.
Jesus is Satan.
You know what peace is?
Just as the word Lord is a translation from Baal,
By respecting
God
others.
from the
How do you
Old
respect?
Testament. Yahweh is the
filming
name of the
without their
Father.
permission?
Yeshua is the name of the
Oh,
Son.
so, but filming without
If
people's
you're
permission,
Muslim,
that's
Christian, or
respect.
Jewish, Yahweh is your creator.
Who
His
told
name
you
is
that?
Yahweh.
Who told you?
Hallelujah.
You're a product of mercy.
Hallelujah. It means praise Yahweh.
So it's not free.
Zechariah.
You're a product.
Jeremiah. Isaiah.
You can stand here and talk about your opinion here with no one coming and beating
Thank you. Now I've got his permission. Now listen, you're a Muslim. You've been here before. No.
Why? We want to know. Let's talk. Everybody. Let's talk
Now
normal.
listen,
Let's
you
talk normal.
understand
Everybody
what the
watch. You
law
won't.
is?
He will refuse.
You know what the law is? The law is the law of Moses.
The
You know what
commandments
the law of Moses
that
is?
the Messiah taught us to follow. The Messiah Yeshua told us if we want to enter the kingdom, we must follow the commandments, and he says not to follow the commandments. He says the law is done away with. Therefore, he is a lawless one.
Hey, get back here.
He's a lawless one.
Hey, you guys got to know.
They deny Yahweh, they deny Yeshua, and they say Jesus is God. That is Antichrist.
Jewish boy.
This is a real life
You know the Ten Commandments.
possessed person, possessed by the spirit of Antichrist. And I can prove it, but he won't even speak to me like a normal person.
Loving, you know what? Loving. Love the Lord thy God with all thy heart, and all thy mind, and all thy strength. Right? And have no idols before you. Right? That's the first commandment. You should know that. Right? Because all other love comes from God's love. Right? We agree. All other love. If you don't love like God loves, you don't know what love is.
He doesn't even care about the name of the Creator Yahweh. He denies Yahweh and says Jesus is God. That is Antichrist.
He says very simply, he says, if
This is a demon trying his best to steal his soul. What you're seeing now is literally an Antichrist, demon-possessed person trying to deceive another fellow human into worshiping the God of the Catholic Church, whose preachers rape little boys.
no, of course not. But when you think about killing, people think killing. Keep talking, we're listening. Without,
No, you don't
without
listen.
that murder, it's talking about human beings, right? Right? Be careful. When you and I kill somebody, we murder someone that is God's product or God's creation.
Who is your God?
So the blood.
Who is your God?
Your blood takes,
Who is your God?
gives your life. Hey, keep talking. Your blood keeps you alive.
Can I ask you something? Excuse me. Hello. Can I ask you something? You mentioned, I'm not arguing because I don't know the answer.
The Old Testament says
You mentioned about in the Catholic Church, and it's been proven. I mean, they are, as far as I'm concerned, they are. I won't say all paedophiles, but there's a lot.
Yes.
But is that not a problem with all the faiths whereby they don't get married? Is it because those faiths, like a lot of the Catholics, they don't get married and basically they are paedophiles in hiding?
Right, but they're all Jesus worshippers, and Jesus is not the name of the Messiah.
They are all, yeah.
All the churches, the preachers worship Jesus.
And they
don't worship Yahweh, the Creator, and they don't preach the Messiah, Yeshua. They have a substitute Christ. Yeshua is the name of the Hebrew Messiah. He comes in the Father's name. His name means Yahweh is salvation. But they want you to use a Latin Mexican name, which comes from Jesus. Jesus comes from Jesus, and Jesus is the name of Satan.
Right. What about then? I want to say this quietly, so I don't want to start them off. But the Muslims, they are paedophiles, as we've been proven. So is it not just them? Is it a problem with the whole of religion, whereby? I mean, we'd take wars. I mean, without religion, we'd have no wars, would we?
No, because see, this is what I come here to talk about. Because if all these deceived religions came back to the Creator Yahweh, which I can prove is the creator of, and the one all of these religions should be worshiping, they would be no more Islam, there would be no more Christianity, no more Judaism. It would just be the worship of Yahweh.
I will look it up when I get home, but I've never heard of it.
You've never heard of Yahweh? Hallelujah.
Hallelujah. Yes, I have.
That means praise Yahweh.
It means God.
You know,
right. So is that then an American thing, bit like the
Messiah?
Yes.
Messiah means anointed by Yahweh.
Okay.
You know these prophets' names? Jeremiah, Hezekiah, Nehemiah, Jeremiah, Isaiah, Zechariah. They all praise the name of Yahweh. Prophets from Islam and all these Christian, Catholic, deceived religions.
I shall enjoy it this afternoon.
All religions have been deceived. All religions have been deceived into worshiping Satan in place of Yahweh.
Yeah.
And
okay.
You can just to research the names they all use.
Yeah. Thank you. Anyway, carry on. Do your bet, and I'll be listening. Thank you.
I'm from Yahweh. Believe it or not.
Oh, yeah.
You heard about all the UFOs that have surrounded the planet?
I've heard about them.
They're with me.
All right.
They're with me. I'm not joking.
Yeah.
I have 200
I think I've seen a few.
You can't take.
Yeah.
Ask Yahweh, he'll send you them, and then you'll know. Say a prayer to Yahweh next time you're out in your garden on a nice clear night. Say a prayer to Yahweh, and they will show it for you. Because when it's time to leave here, that's what we need to do.
I lived in Ibiza for 32 years, and Ibiza's got such clear skies that you can imagine how many things I could see up there.
How did you get to this world?
That's enough.
My mother and my father, I suppose. You know.
And then you were the sperm. There was millions of them.
Yes.
Millions of sperm. And then this orb was just all of a sudden there, and all the other sperm were scared to get in. And you said, you know what, I'm going to get in. And you got in, and you were born into this world. Guess what? It's going to happen again. But when Yahweh and his angels descend in these chariots, these orbs that the government is saying are eggs, whoever gets in will go to the next level.
Tell me quickly.
The rest get flushed down the toilet, my friends.
Yeah. So there's Yahweh is a god. Is he the equivalent? So he's the equivalent of God in Christianity.
He's the Old Testament creator of all things. He's not a god. All gods are idols. Yahweh is the creator of all things. See, they all have gods.
Not physically though. He was up in the heavens, if there is
Yahweh
one.
came physically down.
He did, like same as Jesus.
Yahweh came down in a UFO and spoke to Moses, and Yahweh led the Exodus and took the Israelites away from here in a chariot, a pillar of fire and a pillar of cloud. So it's going to be the same thing again, but when they call it the rapture, but it's really the Exodus, when it happens again and all these orbs come down, only the ones who get in are going.
So is there a Jesus or not? Is there a Jesus there?
Jesus is the Antichrist.
He is he?
Okay,
so he's not the son of...
Yeshua is the son of Yahweh.
I say I memorize.
Yeshua is the Messiah, the one who was crucified, the one that's supposed to have his name in the Bible.
Yes.
But they've changed it and they replaced it with names of Satan. The name Jesus is a translation from Isus or Jesus, and that's a satanic human-hating god. And the word Lord is a translation from Baal or Beelzebub, the Old Testament deity or Satan.
Okay, thank you very much indeed.
So they removed Yahweh and Yeshua's names and they replaced it with Satan's names and they deceived the whole world.
Okay, thanks for the explanation.